At times without any of the overtures to the other side that you might typically see in a joint address to Congress. Democrats, it has to be said, engaged in some theatrics too. Another departure from the norm and a sign that no one has high hopes for bipartisanship in the 4 years ahead.
America is back.
A self-assured President Trump declared the first month of his second term the most successful in history.
Do you know who number 2 is? George Washington. How about that?
He walked the nation through some of his most aggressive moves.
I withdrew from the unfair Paris Climate Accord. I imposed an immediate freeze on all federal hiring. I signed an order making English the official language of the United States of America.
As Trump ticked off the highlights, some ticked-off Democrats held up signs that said false. And some of his claims were false, including this one.
I terminated the ridiculous Green New Scam.
That policy doesn't exist.
We ended the last administration's insane electric vehicle mandate.
That policy also doesn't exist.
Joe Biden, the worst president in American history.
In a departure from tradition, Trump repeatedly slammed his predecessor.
Joe Biden especially let the price of eggs get out of control.
Many Democrats walked out.
The chair now directs the sergeant at arms to restore order.
Al Green of Texas had to be escorted out because he wouldn't stop shouting about possible cuts to Medicaid. Billionaire Elon Musk drew jeers and cheers when President Trump plugged the massive cuts Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency have been making to the federal workforce.
The days of rule by unelected bureaucrats are over.
The president also touted new tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China, but admitted there may be some short-term pain.
Tariffs are about making America rich again, and there'll be a little disturbance. We're okay with that.
And he vowed there are more tariffs to come.
April 2nd, reciprocal tariffs kick in. And whatever they tariff us, other countries, we will tariff them.
In a surprise announcement, Trump celebrated the arrest of Mohammed Sharifullah, one of the alleged masterminds behind the Abbey Gate bombing in Afghanistan that killed 13 U.S. service members.
And he is right now on his way here to face the swift sword of American justice.
On foreign policy, he vowed to seek peace in Ukraine.
Earlier today, I received an important letter from President Zelensky of Ukraine regarding the agreement on minerals and security. Ukraine is ready to sign it at any time.
He said he also plans to retake the Panama Canal.
We didn't give it to China. We gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back.
And he somehow plans to acquire Greenland.
One way or the other, we're going to get it.
Clocking in at an hour and 40 minutes, it was the longest presidential address to Congress in recent. And it ended with this.
My fellow Americans, get ready for an incredible future, because the golden age of America has only just begun.
Democratic Senator Elissa Slotkin from Michigan delivered a much shorter 10-minute response to President Trump's speech that painted a very different picture, criticizing his first 6 weeks in office as taking a reckless and chaotic approach. Slotkin argued that his economic plan doesn't help Americans get ahead, saying that if he's not careful, he could walk us right into a recession. Tony.
Nancy, thank you very much. Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan is with us. She was up late for CBS News, live coverage of the speech last night. Margaret, thank you very much for being here. So there's some news in the speech on Ukraine, on the arrest of this terrorist. Also a lot of theatrics and partisanship. What stood out to you?
Well, these speeches often are partisan. They're a call to action, but there wasn't a lot of specificity in this speech. It did feel like a campaign rally. What stood out to me was the anger in the room. The thin attendance by Democrats and the lack of explanation for any of these policy promises.
Let's talk about the tariffs. You know, he said he was talking about economists are saying they're going to drive the prices higher. He mentioned the reciprocal tariffs that are going to go into effect. How does he justify to Americans who are very skeptical and very worried, quite frankly, about these tariffs?
Right. And well, the president argues, and the Treasury Secretary said this to me just Sunday, he doesn't own this economy for a good 6 to 12 months. So he's saying give him time. Consumers, of course, want to go to the grocery store now and see lower prices. So that's his explanation there. On the tariffs, there is no estimate that the administration will share publicly about the cost. Peterson Institute says it'll be $1,200 more per household. Treasury Secretary said it's unknowable at this point because we don't know how the trade war will go. But what we have seen just in the past 24 hours is showing those lawmakers, those traders on Wall Street, those diplomats, they were wrong when they thought the tariff threat was just about leverage. The president actually does believe that this is the heart of his economic policy, and we're all going to sort of watch this play out in real time.
And he reiterated his desire to end the war in Ukraine. He also revealed that he received a letter from President Zelensky. Where does all of that stand after that infamous Oval Office blow-up? We're talking about the negotiations between the U.S., Russia, and, of course, Ukraine.
Well, to be clear, there are no negotiations between Russia and Ukraine at this point. There's no diplomacy. The only talks that are happening between the U.S. and Ukraine are about this economic partnership, as the U.S. is calling it, or minerals agreement that Ukrainians have said they're more than willing to sign. We don't yet have a promise from the president that he is willing to do that, but he did express interest last night. From the podium, but he has also frozen $4 billion of military equipment that was supposed to go to Ukraine. So does this public statement from Zelensky unfreeze that? We have not heard that to date. The only talks that are happening between the U.S. and Russia right now are about reopening diplomatic properties in each other's countries. So the United States is pulling Vladimir Putin out of isolation. So these two things are happening in parallel, but neither side's talking to each other right now.
Speaking of pulling out, what do we know about this top terrorist apparently responsible for the Kabul airport attack?
His name is Mohammed Sharifullah. He was captured as part of a CIA operation with the Pakistanis. He was interviewed, according to the affidavit, by the FBI March 2nd, and in that said he was a member of ISIS-K going back to 2016, that he had conducted surveillance and training related to that murderous attack that killed 13 service people and at least 160 civilians during the messy evacuation from Afghanistan. Interestingly, also helped to train people for that terrorist attack that took place in Moscow years later. So we'll see. He'll face justice in the Eastern District of Virginia.
All right, Margaret, I wish I'd get some rest, but you work hard.